No one anticipated death. That morning, John and Henry Winkler kept the spirits up by making jokes.
Around 3 p.m., however, something shifted. He continued to perspire and appeared worn out and pallid. Through scenarios, the team observed his struggles. Chaos broke out when he finally passed out at 4 p.m.
He was sent to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in a hurry. Surprisingly, it was the same hospital where he was born.
The doctors gave him a false diagnosis.
The events that followed were truly devastating. On September 17, 1948, John Ritter was born at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California.
Ironically, 54 years later, his life would end at that same hospital. He came from show business nobility. His father was Tex Ritter, a movie star and superstar in country music. Dorothy Faye, his mother, also performed in westerns.
Surrounded by the industry, John and his older brother Tom grew up in a luxurious mansion near Toluca Lake.
Tom suffered from cerebral palsy, and John was always conscious of his brother's difficulties. Although Tex had hoped that John would become a lawyer, he encouraged him to pursue acting instead.
Additionally, John's first significant part on The Waltons was A Lovely Twist of Fate,
his dad's favorite program. When that episode was being filmed in January 1974, John received a call informing him of his father's passing.
New Year's was only a day away.
Although he was portraying a pastor on screen, he was a sad father. He was determined to complete his scenes that day. His emotional honesty would be shaped by that tragedy in all of his subsequent roles. However, he had already suffered a severe blow from life previously. John was riding in a car as a youngster when his right eye was hit by something that flew through the window. He was permanently harmed by it. In that eye, his center vision was lost. He could see just in his peripheral vision. It affected him every day, although he never discussed it much.
On screen, however, you would never notice.
He compensated by changing his expressions, timing, and movement. Later, Don Knotts referred to him as the world's best physical comedian. Knowing what he was up against made it even more significant. All of Three's Company's slapstick in pratfalls. All of this he was doing with poor vision. His talent was even more remarkable because of his concealed injury.
John didn't initially want to be an actor, which is strange.
He was elected most popular and served as president of the student body at Hollywood High School. His dream was to become a politician. He majored in psychology and minored in architecture while attending USC.
Then again, Nina Foch taught him an acting class.
Everything was altered.
After changing his major to theater, he graduated with a BFA in drama. But he didn't end there.
He enrolled in Harvey Lembeck's comedy workshop and trained under the renowned Stella Adler. He even went on tour in Europe, performing in stage productions in England, Scotland, Holland, and Germany while his father was entertaining American soldiers in Germany. There were striking similarities. But before all of that, before college, there was a ridiculous game show right before the acting classes. John started playing the dating game in 1966 when he was only 18.
He has yet to achieve fame.
Even though he wasn't enrolled in acting school, his charm and humor earned him a prize, a trip to Lake Havasu, Arizona.
His debut TV appearance obviously had an impact. He soon started attending USC. I got accepted into that transformative acting course. Although that game show may have appeared insignificant at the time, it marked the start of a television adventure that would have a profound impact on millions of people. John's early acting career was all about calculated maneuvers and consistent development. In 1970, he played a student protester on Dan August, his first television appearance. Norman Fell, who would go on to play Mr. Roper on Three's Company, and Burt Reynolds were the stars of the performance. John was already a standout in this small society. Before long, he was appearing on major shows and landing regular roles, such as Reverend Fordwick on The Waltons, Medical Center, Kojak, The Bob Newhart Show, MASH, and The Streets of San Francisco. Each section revealed a distinct aspect of him. He was dramatic, humorous, and serious. He performed well in each role that was required of him. Then the Mary Tyler Moore Show arrived. That one was large. Again, he portrayed a minister. But this time on a comedy program that helped define the historical period. Producers and casting directors had noticed by that point. John was more than a lucky charm. He demonstrated his range. In 1974, he experienced one of the most devastating experiences of his early career while filming The Waltons. John was in the middle of his shoot, and his father had recently died.
He continued to film despite his grief.
Production would be halted, the director offered. However, John declined.
His father insisted that the show must continue.
John had an even more stunning performance that day since he was acting through actual suffering.
He received a lot of support from the cast, particularly from Richard Thomas, who played John Boy. That encounter influenced John's subsequent work, which was intensely professional and emotionally charged.
As his career in television expanded, John also entered the film industry. He co-starred with Burt Reynolds and Ryan O'Neal in Nickelodeon in 1976.
At the time of that filming, he was already trying out for Three's Company. He collaborated on Breakfast in Bed with Jenny Sullivan in 1977.
In the 1979 political parody Americathon, he also portrayed President Jet Roosevelt.
At about the same time, he started co-hosting the United Cerebral Palsy Telethon with his brother Tom. This dedication, which lasted for 15 years, meant a lot to him and demonstrated that his values had not altered despite his popularity. He continued to work in both TV and movies, and few performers were able to successfully juggle both.
John had to battle to play Jack Tripper when ABC chose to create Three's Company. Actor Billy Crystal was among the more than 50 people that tried out.
The network considered John's portrayal of the character to be too feminine and nearly handed it to someone else. Even replacing him was a possibility, but ABC's Fred Silverman had faith in him.
He recognized that John's timing and physical humor were unparalleled, something that others did not.
He continued to play the part, and test audiences adored him. That choice altered the course of television history. John had watched Dick Van Dyke and Chevy Chase to learn about physical humor. He gained mobility, fell, and stumbled.
And add humor. This is what made Jack Tripper so memorable.
However, Three's Company hardly ever appeared on television.
The first pilot didn't work out. ABC did not like it.
The actress portraying Chrissy was swapped out for Suzanne Lanier, although Joyce DeWitt remained as Janet.
Even if the second version was superior, it was nonetheless unsuccessful.
Fred Silverman was going over the audition recordings once more the day before the start of the filming.
He witnessed Suzanne Summers' tryout and was familiar with her from The Tonight Show. No one has ever taken her seriously before. She was going to give up acting.
After surviving a terrible near crash on a flight, but ironically, she went to the audition. She had the laid-back, easygoing air that the concert needed. She was cast at the last minute by Silverman, and the following day, filming got underway. When Three's Company debuted in March 1977, it caused a stir in the United States. In order to live in the same apartment as two unmarried women, Jack Tripper, a straight man, pretended to be gay. Even though the setup was straightforward, the concept was absurd at the time.
Networks couldn't decide whether to laugh or freak out. Jack could only remain under the roof of the show by pretending to be the innocuous gay roommate because the landlord was an old-school prude.
It reinforced prejudices, and the humor seems awkward now. The majority of the jokes, according to critics, were based on dread.
Apprehension that Jack may be gay.
Even back then, Norman Fell's character, Mr. Roper, made terrible jokes that felt forced. Later on, Don Knotts played Mr. Furley, who many believed was secretly gay himself, but the show never explicitly stated it. The show tended more toward silliness than brutality, despite its shortcomings. Strangely enough, the same thing that frightened the networks was what made the show unique.
The audience was unable to turn away.
That was audacious.
Something was different.
It also coincided with a change in American society's attitudes around relationships, sex, and identity. But behind the scenes, things weren't quiet. In 1980, by season 5, Suzanne Summers, who portrayed the vivacious blonde Chrissy Snow, was dissatisfied with her salary. Her pay per episode was $30,000. And shared John Ritter's $150,000 wish. Additionally, she requested 10% of the show's earnings.
She received an additional $5,000 from ABC. That's when it all fell apart.
It was an odd solution from the network.
Summers would continue to make brief appearances in episodes.
She taped brief scenes by herself while feigning to phone her roommates from her Fresno mother's house. She no longer shared a set with her co-stars. To help Ritter and Joyce DeWitt know when to avoid her, they were given unique colored scripts.
Things became personal. Ritter was offended that she made the argument public.
It was more than 30 years before DeWitt spoke to Summers again. The friendship no longer existed. Only shortly before he passed away in 2003 did Summers and Ritter get back together. However, Ritter's ability was undeniable in spite of the pandemonium. He had previously received Golden Globe nominations in 1979 and 1980 and Emmy nominations in 1978 and 1981. But he didn't win both until 1984, when the show was in its last season. The Golden Globe for Best Actor in a TV Comedy or Musical and the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy were both won by him. He had gained widespread recognition by that point. A star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was awarded to him in the same year. His father, country music artist Tex Ritter, was also a success, therefore they were the first father-son team to have stars in distinct genres. In 1984, ABC introduced a spin-off named Three's a Crowd because they weren't prepared to let go of Jack Tripper. Vicky, who Jack now lived with, had a judgmental father who always got in the way. But it was a failure. Only 22 episodes were produced. The erasure of the past was what infuriated the fans. Neither Terry, Janet, Chrissy, or even the landlords were mentioned. Larry, Jack's friend, was the only one who briefly appeared. Critics blasted it. It seemed like Jack and his girlfriend's father were having the same old quarrel in every episode. In the event that the network wanted more, Ritter insisted on a full season. Only half was provided by ABC. He left. It was described as a classic example of how to ruin a popular show by Entertainment Weekly years later. As all of this was going on, Ritter made an unexpected attempt. He provided the voice of The Flight of Dragons, an animated movie, in 1982. It wasn't a big hit, but HBO and TV replays helped it quietly acquire fans. Ritter portrayed the character of Peter Dickinson, a man who changes into a dragon. He only needed one take to capture the dramatic change sequence. His tone gradually changed from human to animal. Without pauses. Animators continue to discuss the performance. According to one director, it even carried the same emotional weight as Robin Williams' 10-year-later Aladdin. With Hooperman, a half-hour program that combined comedy and genuine drama, Ritter made a comeback to television in 1987. Because critics couldn't agree on a term, they came up with the term dramedy. Ritter portrayed a police officer named Harry Hooperman, who inherits a building of apartments and a temperamental Jack Russell Terrier. The show had a head start. One camera format was utilized. It would subsequently become popularized by series like Modern Family and The Office. Among the guest stars were Mark Hamill and Don Cheadle. Ritter was nominated for another Emmy and Golden Globe for his performance. He received a People's Choice Award as well. Later on, ABC would acknowledge that canceling Hooperman was a mistake. Though it was not quick enough, viewers adored it. After Three's Firm, Ritter continued to work, but he faced a significant challenge. Not everyone could forget Jack Tripper. They thought he would constantly play clown and knock over stuff. He had to shatter the mold, Ritter realized. In Skin Deep, 1989, he played a sad writer who was on the verge of destroying himself. It was gloomy but humorous. The change was audacious. In 1990, the course of John Ritter's career was unexpected. He left Three's Company's silly charm behind and entered Problem Child's turbulent environment. A kind man named Ben Healy, portrayed by Ritter, adopts a youngster named Junior, who ends up being a complete nightmare. The film was based on a factual story, which most people are unaware of. A youngster who was so troubled that even animals were terrified of him was detailed in an article in the Los Angeles Times. Universal changed the script from being a dark adult satire to a children's comedy. It was vilified by critics. Nevertheless, crowds turned up. On a budget of only $11 million, the movie earned $72.2 million worldwide. Ritter's gentle monologue, in which she vowed to love Junior no matter how awful he became, stayed with viewers. The approval of Problem Child 2 was sufficient. The very following year. After Ritter's comeback, the franchise took off. He did not appear in a third movie, an animated series, or even the 1995 Turkish version, Zubkukt. Ritter continued to build momentum in 1992. He played the lead in two quite distinct comedies. Noises Off, a tumultuous film about a theater ensemble disintegrating behind the scenes, came first. The cast was full of celebrities, including Carol Burnett and Michael Caine. Ritter's character, Christopher Reeve, was a clumsy actor enmeshed in the chaos. The film developed a cult following despite earning only $2 million on a $12 million budget. Without going too far, one reviewer claimed that it captured Ritter at his funniest. In Stay Tuned that same year, he made another change. After striking a bargain with the devil, he played a couch potato who finds himself in a perverse TV reality. He sold the ridiculous comedy with his charisma from real life. For a little while, he even reverted to his former Three's Company persona. The last scene included salt and pepper and was set inside one of their music videos. Critics appreciated Ritter's energy and timing, but the movie didn't do well at the box office. Sling Blade followed in 1996. None of the others were like this. Vaughn Cunningham, a quiet gay manager of a dollar store, was portrayed by Ritter. In a tiny southern community. In stark contrast to his previous part, this one was silent. Ritter and Billy Bob Thornton collaborated on Hearts of Fire, and Thornton wrote and directed the film. Although it wasn't simple, Ritter was able to get the role thanks to their connection. Tension on set resulted from him altering his appearance for the part. He even got into a quarrel about his hairstyle. He changed, though, when the cameras started rolling. Ritter was silent and still in one instance. He remained motionless, and Thornton retained the shot. In addition to winning an Oscar for Best Adapted Screenplay, the movie altered casting directors' perceptions on Ritter. Even if he was no longer just interested in comedy, he still had a presence on television. Ritter had introduced Hearts of Fire, a political satire on CBS, back in 1992. He portrayed conservative aide John Hartman, who develops feelings for Marquee Post's leftist journalist. The show even had Billy Bob Thornton in a supporting role and had clever writing. However, the network imposed adjustments following season 1. The scene was relocated from Washington, D.C. to the tiny town in the South. Ritter's persona transitioned from insider in politics to newspaper proprietor. The transition was a failure. By season 3, the number of viewers had fallen from over 20 million to about 10. One episode of the show remained unaired when it terminated in 1995. For a show about passion and conflict, Earth, Wind and Fire's original theme music was appropriate. Ritter then unexpectedly made an appearance on Ally McBeal in 1998. He portrayed the endearing and sentimental character George Madison, who appeared in 2 episodes. Though brief, the role will never be forgotten. Ritter received an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Guest Actor for his skillful blending of sadness with laughter. The nod placed him on par with Woody Harrelson and William Shatner, even if he didn't win. It made everyone realize how excellent he truly was. By the year 2000, he was engaged in a completely different activity, voice acting. Clifford, the large red dog, adopted his voice. He was introduced to a whole new audience through the PBS cartoon children who were unaware that he had ever appeared in a sitcom. His soft voice made the character come to life in more than 60 episodes and a motion picture. For the part, Ritter received 4 consecutive Daytime Emmy nominations. Actress Nancy Morgan and John Ritter were married on October 16, 1977. They created a life together for nearly 2 decades, and produced 3 children, Tyler a few years later, Carly in 1982, and Jason in 1980. Their home was more than just a family. The Dreamer of Oz is a 1990 television film in which the 3 of them co-starred. Was Jason's first role as a child actor. To the public, they appeared to be a contented Hollywood family. Behind closed doors, however, things weren't quite so ideal. 1993 saw their separation, and in 1996 they formally filed for divorce. Nevertheless, they maintained their strong relationship and co-parented their kids amicably. In addition to her own career, Nancy worked with Italian actor Terence Hill and starred in movies like Grand Theft Auto. John met Amy Yasbeck in 1990 while working on a script for the comedy Problem Child, while he was still married to Nancy. The connection was made at once. Despite the disintegration of his marriage, this new connection began to develop. In Problem Child 2 and a 1991 episode of The Cosby Show, they continued to collaborate, in which Amy portrayed John's expectant wife. Their stories' on-screen timing seemed strangely similar to real life. Just after John's divorce was finalized in 1996, he played Amy's estranged spouse on Wings, a sitcom. After a while, their professional relationship developed into a romantic one, and they fell in love. John and Amy were married at Wilmington, Ohio's Murphy Theater on September 18, 1999. It wasn't a random place. Charles Webb Murphy, Amy's great-great-great-uncle and former Chicago Cubs owner, constructed the theater. On September 11, 1998, a little more than a year after the birth of their child, the couple got married. Stella, the child's birth name, changed to Noah Lee Ritter at the age of 18. John's death on September 11, 2003, Noah's 5th birthday, left a legacy of both happiness and sorrow that would never be completely erased.
John has a strong connection to the United Cerebral Palsy Foundation.
Tom Ritter, his older brother, had cerebral palsy, but John never thought of him as weak. He once claimed that he believed Tom was overindulged by his parents.
John was a big believer in encouraging his brother to be strong.
He started him playing wiffle ball and urged him to get back up each time he stumbled. It was a wise belief. John went on to become an actor, while Tom completed law school.
In the 1980s, Tom worked as a TV producer and co-starred with comic Jerry Jewell on UCP's telethon.
Over $17 million was raised for the charity in only one weekend when John staged the same telethon.
The irony was still present.
John had previously acted as president in the 1979 movie Americathon, where he organized a massive telethon to save the country.
He was actually doing something very similar.
Although John never pushed them, his kids grew up surrounded by cameras. He led, encouraged, and demanded hard work from them. When Jason was 10 years old, he began acting with his father. By 2025, he will have performed in more than 100 roles and was nominated for an Emmy for Parenthood.
Also turned to acting.
Inspired by their grandfather, Tex Ritter, Carly pursued a different career path in music. The youngest, Noah, also avoided the limelight for the most part. Every child carried a bit of their father's energy, even if they all went their own paths. It started off on the set of 8 Simple Rules Like Any Other Day, September 11, 2003. For the second season, John was filming.
Henry Winkler, who was a guest star, recalled John's humor and ability to lift everyone's spirits. Their final conversation took place at around noon.
Despite seeming quite strange, sweaty, and exhausted, John managed to smile.
"I want you to know that I love you," he whispered to Kaylee Cuoco as he pulled her aside and sat her down that day. She responded, "It's that simple."
He hugged her after responding.
Nobody knew it was farewell. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, John began to feel ill during a practice. He was feeling queasy, his chest felt constricted, and he was sweating more. He was instructed to perform a humorous physical performance, dash across a room, and jump over a bed by the director, Robbie Benson. However, John was having trouble. His respiration was labored. Sensing that something was amiss, Benson lowered the volume. John gave him a hug after thanking him. No one understood that John was experiencing something different from a normal heart attack. He was experiencing a dissection of his aorta, a rupture in the wall of the body's biggest artery. It's uncommon, risky, and challenging to identify. By 4 p.m., the situation was worse. John was obviously in discomfort. Members of the crew went into a panic. Kaylee Cuoco subsequently claimed to have witnessed mayhem and heard yelling.
In front of everyone, John was falling just 6 days before his 55th birthday. Furthermore, it was Noah's 6th birthday.
How could this day have been happy? Became something that would stick in their memories.
In Burbank, they hurried him to Providence St. Joseph Medical Center. It was just a short drive away, and in an odd turn of events, it was the same hospital where John was born on September 17, 1948. Upon their arrival at approximately 5 p.m., he was still conscious. He kept telling about how his chest felt tight and was throwing up in agony. An EKG was performed by the doctors, but the results were unclear. Suspected a heart attack. By 6 p.m., John's condition deteriorated. He had a decrease in blood pressure. His lungs began to fill with liquid. His heart was pounding. The physicians adhered to the heart attack protocol. They implanted a balloon pump and administered blood thinners to him. However, those remedies did not address the true nature of the situation. According to a Yale cardiac surgeon, the very measures taken to save his life might have made it worse. The tear might have been visible on a straightforward chest X-ray, but no one ordered one. By 7 p.m., doctors performed another EKG. The appearance was awful. John was sent to surgery, but it was too late. The harm was done. John Ritter passed away on September 11, 2003, in the evening. He was 54 years old. ABC had already finished 3 episodes, but the main actor was no longer in the show. The actors and staff were devastated. Behind the scenes, Disney and ABC executives had to make difficult decisions that affected both their emotions and their businesses. After Ritter's funeral, high-level discussions started shortly after. Michael Eisner, CEO of Disney, had an idea in a flash. His recommendation was to write Kate, played by Katie Sagal, as pregnant. His goal was to enhance ratings by having the kid born during the May sweeps, but the response was harsh.
President Susan Lyne and Lloyd Braun, the chairman of ABC Entertainment, were appalled. They gave it a call incredibly exploitative. In response, Eisner said they were behaving like elitists. It was a loud, passionate, and intimate debate.
The notion of a pregnancy was eventually abandoned.
November 2003 saw the return of the show after a 2-month hiatus. A 1-hour special titled Goodbye served as the return episode. It paid homage to Ritter's portrayal of Paul Hennessy. There was no longer a live audience for the show.
It was shot in silence to fit the somber tone. In order to sustain the series, they cast seasoned performers Suzanne Plachette and James Garner as Kate's parents.
David Spade also appeared, portraying Kate's nephew.
These adjustments allowed the show to continue for 2 more seasons. But it was never the same without Ritter. The way that ABC handled his death became a significant example of how networks deal with unexpected tragedies where emotion and profit collide. On September 3, 2004, a year after his passing, John Ritter's wife, Amy Yasbeck, and his 4 kids filed a significant lawsuit. 2 physicians, radiologist Matthew Ludish and cardiologist Joseph Lee, were asked to pay $67 million. The figure was derived using Ritter's anticipated future income from acting in other projects, including 8 Basic Rules.
Their attorney, Moses Leibovitz, didn't mince words in court.
This certainly constituted malpractice, he added. According to Leibovitz, Dr. Lee made a number of crucial errors the evening Ritter arrived at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center. He claimed that Lee utilized a balloon pump, which exacerbated the condition, failed to obtain a complete medical history, and failed to order a chest X-ray.
The family claims that Ritter was initially misdiagnosed as having a heart attack. Medical professionals then believed it to be pericardial tamponade. However, the true problem was a massive ascending aortic aneurysm that had been severely dissected before the case even went to trial. 9 other medical groups had already paid the family over $14 million in settlements. Among them was a $9.4 million payout from Ritter's Deaths Hospital. But after losing her husband, Amy Yasbeck didn't stop fighting the law.
In October 2003, the John Ritter Foundation for Aortic Health was established by her.
She was concerned that no other family would experience what hers had. By raising awareness, doing research, and educating people, the goal was straightforward but crucial: to stop aortic dissection deaths. Over time, the foundation has expanded. It has contributed to the funding of the Houston-based John Ritter Research Program, which is run by Dr. Deanna Milowich, since 2010. Over 1,500 households were enrolled in the program by 2023. Their information has been invaluable.
More knowledge regarding the condition's symptoms, risk factors, and effective treatment methods has been made available to physicians. Additionally, the Ritter rules were developed by the foundation. When someone exhibits symptoms of aortic dissection, follow these easy, life-saving guidelines to help them identify the condition and take immediate action.
After more than 2 decades, Amy Yasbeck hasn't slowed down in 2025.
Her battle goes on, not only in Ritter's honor but also to save lives, she said on the foundation's website.